the audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small, and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family, and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Deaf Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
And welcome to the Kulturecast. I'm Chris Stachiw, and I am joined by my little zombie buddy, Eric Kniss.
Oh, God. Yeah. Hi.
How weird is it that Arnold Schwarzenegger did a zombie film, and it's not about him beating the shit out of zombies?
It's really kind of awesome, I guess. I don't know.
Expectations subverted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. If you knew anything about this movie, like going into it, or like watched a trailer, like you knew it wasn't gonna be that. So,
or looked at the poster.
Yeah, or like read the title. Otherwise, it would have been called something like Austrian Zombie Destroyer.
I would have made an Arnold Schwarzenegger zombie movie called Death to the Dead.
Oh,
yeah. Death to the Undead. So if you can't tell what we're talking about, we are finishing up Schwarzenegger September with a look at Arnold's first pure dramatic role in the zombie drama Maggie. Film came out in 2015. It was directed by Henry Hobson. It stars the aforementioned Arnold Schwarzenegger and Abigail Breslin as the eponymous Maggie. The IMDb synopsis for the film is: a teenage girl in the Midwest becomes infected by an outbreak of a disease that slowly turns the infected into cannibalistic zombies. During her transformation, her loving During her transformation, her loving father stays by her side.
Father, I'm your father.
Come on, what are you doing? Don't become a zombie. No. Oh boy.
I'm your father. Listen to me.
So Eric. It's not a tumor. You're just a zombie. God damn it, Craig. Oh, good Lord.
Dad, you've protected me all my life. Now it's my turn to protect you. There is life with you, not with me. Don't come looking for me. I'm safe. I'm fine.
Mr. Vogel, I wouldn't normally release someone with this type of infection.
Dad!
I need you to follow the rules here. Quarantine is 8 weeks in. She's probably going to show more signs of aggression and hunger. When that happens, say your goodbyes and get her straight through quarantine.
I made a promise to your mother that I will protect you. Quarantine rules apply to everybody, Wade.
So you'd seen this film before. I'd never seen this film before. Eric, watching this film again, what did you think?
I really, really like this movie. It's definitely like not what you expect out of Arnold Schwarzenegger in a zombie movie. It's a very like slow, somber, like bleak look at basically how, you know, a father and a family deals with a child that has like a terminal illness, basically. Just set in like this sort of like post-zombie society or whatever. I thought it was really, really good. I think Arnold is really, really good in it. Yeah, it's totally different than anything that you expect from him. But I thought it was great, you know. It's a little slow and it gets a little bit repetitive. Like the second half of the movie is very similar to the first half of the movie in that sense. But I don't know. I really liked it. What did you think?
For this being Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And we're so accustomed to, especially this month, come on, do it, kill me. And that was the point of this month, was to watch films that are not, you know, stereotypical Arnold films. Unfortunately, due to both of us getting sick during the month, we really didn't get a chance to watch the films that I was really excited for, namely Junior, which Junior is a film, I don't know if you ended up watching it or not, but it is a film that is not funny at all. Because it is dealing with some stuff that like you wouldn't expect out of a Schwarzenegger film, like abortion and like women's rights, and it is an oddly not funny film.
Oh, I've seen it before, and yeah, it's definitely like it's a really weird Schwarzenegger movie, and it's not like, I mean,
it's billed as a comedy.
Yeah, and I mean,
but it's not funny.
I don't know. It's not funny. It's just like the way that everything is presented is like in this really kind of out there way. I don't know. It's not funny for like different reasons other than the fact that it's just like the jokes don't land or whatever.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's a weird movie. So, and this film is the same way as far as I'm concerned. When you think of, if someone pitched to you, hey, it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger zombie film, first off, it's surprising to me that film was never made. Arnold Schwarzenegger, in my opinion, he never got to be in a true horror movie, which is a bummer, because I would have loved to have seen Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he's still acting, so it may still happen, but I would love to see Arnold Schwarzenegger in like a pure horror zombie film.
I mean, you just want to see Arnold just like
really cool.
Take a machete to a bunch of zombies and just like shoot his way out of like a horde of some type.
Why not? That would be kind of cool, right? Like, we haven't seen that. We've seen Arnold in sci-fi. We've seen Arnold in like pure action roles like Commando.
I mean, I don't know.
We've seen
There's
Predator.
Like End of Days is like kind of a horror movie, and he like fights the devil. So
fuck
like
off.
I never said it was a good movie. I just said it was like kind of a horror movie, you know? Just like this movie is also like kind of a horror movie. It's like, this is like a horror movie, like how movies like It Follows are horror movies. Like, this is sort of like a part of that sort of like new sort of like indie horror movie. I don't know how you would describe it. It's just like this kind of like the new wave of like indie horror movies, like where everything is like sort of small scale, not a ton of, you know, special effects and stuff. And it's like really more about the narrative and the characters and the story than it is about, you know, the bloodshed and the practical effects and, you know, shit like that.
Well, like you said, this movie is more about how a family deals with terminal illness than it is about zombies. You know, the zombie virus and the zombie kind of trope is used as a vehicle to tell a story about a family torn apart by terminal illness. I mean, you could literally replace the zombie infection in this film with AIDS or cancer or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, almost.
Yeah.
It definitely has like sections of this movie that are like very, that definitely like center around the fact that she's like a zombie or whatever. And like you couldn't have, you know, parts like her with the fox or whatever, like in a story about a little girl with cancer or whatnot, and I think you couldn't make a movie that was as bleak as this movie is if it was just like a regular old, like, oh, you have a brain tumor and like you're gonna die in 2 weeks or whatever, like that. Like, you couldn't make a movie that was like this hardcore and like this like not fun if it was about something as real as that. So it's like you almost have to have this sort of fantastical, like horrific vehicle so that it sort of like downplays the like, oh well, like of course like zombies aren't real or whatever, but it's like I mean, would you classify this movie as a horror movie? Because I do.
Like, I would say that this movie is a horror movie in premise, but most of what happens in the movie is not horror at all. Similar films that have come out recently, like you said, It Follows is more of a horror movie than this movie is. The Witch, this film is kind of similar to The Witch. The Witch is not a horror movie for 90% of the film. It's a narrative character study.
Exactly. It's you're dealing with
and a period
dealing
piece.
with not the witch for 90% of the movie, and then like when it happens, you get that big payoff or whatever.
Yeah. Similarly, films that have come out, I know that you're gonna go to bat for Get Out being a horror movie. I still don't think it's a horror movie, but Get Out is a horror movie in billing, in execution. It's something very different. Films like Maggie and Get Out use and this has been something that, I mean, George A. Romero did this with the Return, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. And that's what makes horror such an awesome genre. And it really upsets me when people are like, I don't like horror movies and I don't like being scared. Well, there are tons of horror movies that are not scary. There are a fair number of horror movies that do not use jump scares and other stuff, other tropes of the genre to tell the story because they are using the horror vehicle to talk about something else.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.
Night of the Living Dead is about racism and xenophobia to some extent. Dawn of the Living Dead is a condemnation of consumerism. The Nightmare on Elm Street 2, as gay as a film as it is, and that's not we're not giving the film a hard time. It's a very gay film. It's about coming out.
Yeah, it's the most like it's the most homosexual, not actually homosexual movie probably ever created. And you're right, it's totally about coming out.
It's a film about coming out.
Yeah, which is like something that you don't maybe think about if you just watch it and you go like, man, this is really weird. This movie's kind of gay. But if you think about it for like 30 seconds and you kind of like, delve a little bit deeper into, maybe the meaning that, the creators of the film are trying to get across, then, even a movie that's like Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which is arguably not a great movie in general.
It's not even a good movie.
Yeah, it still has something to say, other than just being like a crappy slasher.
Well, and even with a film like Get Out, it's a film that is a horror movie. And again, I don't really consider it a horror movie, but it's talking about the state of racial tension in America.
Totally, 100%.
And just in general.
And it's not even thinly veiled. It's like, right out there in the open.
It gets pretty heavy-handed at points, actually.
No, and I
mean, to its own detriment to some extent.
But the movie works really well because of the vehicle that it uses and everything. And so it makes it, like you said, a little bit easier to digest, a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier going down because, like, it's not just, otherwise it would just be like a documentary, about like racism and, the way that even seemingly non-racist people treat people in America, which, is a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. So if you do it under the guise of a horror movie that is like sort of this a little bit out of the normal realm, sort of premise, then it makes it easier for a lot of people to go see it and go like, oh my God, that movie's so good. And its message is totally on point.
And it's still my favorite movie I've seen this year.
It's an amazing movie.
But my issue with a lot of this is, and again, you can probably sympathize, there are a fair amount of people that don't like horror movies because they automatically assume that every horror movie is Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
And that to me is a huge bummer because a lot of horror movies aren't that. I mean, even a film like It, which neither one of us found remotely scary, it's not really about a killer clown.
No,
it's a coming of age story.
He's really, Pennywise is in the movie not as much as either of us wanted him to be, but at the same time, when you're telling this, story across two movies, and you're really trying to develop the characters so that we give a shit about them, which is something that I think a lot of horror movies are lacking in. They just jump right into the, here's the bad guy, let's start fucking killing people off, which,
Well, and that was 80s. That was 80s
yeah,
horror.
but those movies had their place,
Yeah, and those movies are great for what they are. Like the original Nightmare on Elm Street is still one of my favorite films, but the original Nightmare on Elm Street did something that a lot of horror films at the time didn't do, which was give us a reason to care about the characters. And films like Maggie do the same thing.
Oh, and that's all that Maggie really does. Like, it spends the entire movie like just basically making it harder and harder and harder for you to watch the ending of this movie, like the entire time. It's just like the family dynamic that's happening, the father and daughter relationship that's happening, the how everybody in the family is sort of coming to terms, like from her half siblings, the little kids at the very beginning who have some idea of what's going on, but like not really. It seems like, it's one of those things like where a lot of kids, especially younger kids, have like a harder time sort of understanding, heavy things like, somebody is sick and they're going to die, or when a family member does die or somebody that they know dies. It's kind of like a weird thing to explain to a kid, like, you're not going to see this person anymore. They're not going to be around. And they sort of understand, but they don't really get exactly what it means. It's sort of, one of those things where they just like, they haven't lived enough. So they haven't invested enough, into people or like developed these sort of like emotions about things in order to like understand it. And then you have, the father and the stepmom, who the stepmom definitely feels it, but like not nearly to the extent of like her father and everything like that. And you sort of like deal with her accepting the fact that, this is only going to get worse. Yeah, we've already said it multiple times, but this is a total like terminal illness movie where you're just watching a little girl come to terms with the fact that she's going to die and her dad doing the same thing.
And man, this is not a Schwarzenegger film in the way that anyone would expect it to be. And before we started talking about this, before we started recording, I said to you, he's not on screen enough. Schwarzenegger's not. And I think that works to the film's benefit because I don't think about Schwarzenegger being an actor who has a lot of range. And I think that's unfortunate on my part because he is a fantastic actor for what he does. He has comedic timing when it's written right. I mean, talk about a film like Jingle All the Way. I mean, that film is unintentionally funny because it's not that great of a film. But I mean, the fact that he's on screen, I don't know, maybe like 2/3 of this film, maybe not even that, like half of the time, like it helps that he's not on screen all the time because it allows them to kind of not, I don't know, worry about his weaknesses as a dramatic actor being shown on screen.
Totally. And actually, I mean, for the times that he is on screen, I'm having a hard time of thinking of anything that like irked me about his performance or wasn't believable or like took me out of it. Like there was no point in this movie that you see the classic Arnold that you're like looking for this whole time, except for maybe when he like bashes in a zombie head, you know, like one time in the movie or something like that. That was like, you don't like, there's no, come on, just do it. Like there's none of that. Like it's a very soft, like played extremely straight, like extremely somber performance, you know, like the character that he's playing is this like rural farmer guy, you know, who's like, you know, one of those like hard, you know, man's man type of people, you know, where he's just, you know, he lives off the land, blah, blah, blah. He's been living outside the city or whatever. He, you know, like runs this farm and he's got his family and shit. And then, you know, he has to deal with this tragedy or whatever. And he's sort of like dealing with this and all the emotions that come with it in like the only ways that he knows how to do. And it definitely like, I don't know, it came across like very believable and very, you know, the performance I thought was great from him. And I kind of liked, you know, the way that you said it was kind of spot on. You know, this movie's not about him. It's not called Arnold. It's called Maggie. So, you know, I think it's good that he's not really the focus for the entire movie and that Abigail Breslin is, you know, really the main character of this movie from start to finish. So,
yeah. Well, and again, I think anyone who watches this film, even if they don't like the film, will be surprised how successful Arnold is as a dramatic actor.
Oh, yeah, totally. It was one of those things where you're watching it and you're going like, okay, like it's probably not going to be terrible because it's Arnold. Like, come on, he's been around and he's been doing this for, you know, a really long time. Like, it's not going to be bad. But like, you know, you're waiting for the moment like where it's like there's like kind of a funny section that's maybe not supposed to be funny because Arnold kind of his accent gets in the way or, you know, his timing is like a little bit weird or something like that. And it never comes. It's, you know, it's a somber film. It's not the kind of film that's going to appeal to most people. It really is. Yeah. It's really sad. It's a really sad movie. There's a lot of like tearjerker parts of the movie. Like even, you know, a lot of movies like this, it's like you sort of like build up all of this, you know, sort of sad tension. And then at the end you have the big, like, you know, sad moment or whatever, which this movie totally has. But at the same time, you have these little sections like throughout the movie that I think in a lot of ways mirror, you know, what happens in real life when you're dealing with the sort of inevitable loss of somebody that you love. You know, if it doesn't happen suddenly, you don't have this like one big moment of sadness. You have all these little moments of sadness sort of leading up to it. You know, all the times that you accept that things are going to happen and that things are never going to be the same and that you can't do anything about it. And this movie definitely hits on all those points. You know, it's sort of like the stages of like grief before your grief even begins. You know, you start to grieve before, you know, the person you love is even gone because you know that it's going to happen and you can't do anything about it. And this movie definitely like drives home those points a lot throughout the movie, you know, and then at the end you kind of get the full, you know, release of, I don't know, the loss, I guess.
Well, let's take a quick break and play some commercials. And when we get back, we'll finish up discussing the film. Who is Carl Kolchak?
He's a reporter.
Now that is news, Vincenzo. News! And we are a newspaper. We are supposed to print news, not suppress it.
With the INS.
What's an INS?
Independent news service, sir, founded in 1904 by Enrico Paluzzi. Who seems to have a nose for the strange and unusual.
Well, last year in Las Vegas, I uncovered a series of murders that turned out to have been committed by a vampire.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster. You know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
And what is the Kolchak Tapes?
It's a podcast.
All about Carl Kolchak.
What's a Kolchak?
The Night Stalker.
And where can you get it?
On iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and at www.kolchaktapes.com.
As foolish a game as any that Gory the Ghoul could make up.
Movies have become a portal to a vast and growing pop culture universe, but you don't need to go over the rainbow to get your pop culture fix. Just head to Rainbow Comics, Cards, and Collectibles. They are your one-stop shop for comics, toys, posters, games, and more. Not a pop culture nerd? No problem. They have something for everyone, including a wide array of sports cards, collectible card games, even memorabilia. Stop by one of their 2 locations today. The flagship location at 3310 South Minnesota Avenue, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or their newest location at 1501 Pine Lake Road, Suite 17, Lincoln, Nebraska. Most importantly, don't forget to add them on Facebook for pop culture news, weekly live videos, and special events.
Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
Week after week, I'm mesmerized by the focus given great films and questionable films alike. But every episode is a learning and entertaining experience.
This is hands down the best movie podcast. They cover so many different genres across so many years, from obscure movies to blockbusters.
If there's only one podcast about movies and cinema that you listen to, make it this one.
The Projection Booth Podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
All right, so we are back and we are continuing to talk about Maggie. You know, you were talking about kind of the way that the film gets to the climax. And this film's climax is a pretty reserved, downplayed climax. And I think that is one of the better parts of the film, is the final scene with her and Arnold, and she walks into the room and she, you know, he's pretending to be asleep, but he's not.
Yeah, he's sitting there with the gun in his lap. Just like, basically, it's like the end of the movie and like everything has kind of fallen apart at this point. And, you know, she's like really on the verge of like just going full zombie. And she's having a really hard time like maintaining control at this point of like her conscious brain. And at this point, Arnold has had a conversation with, he's like the local doctor a couple of times about like, you know, when the time comes, you know, you have a couple of options. You can, you know, she can go to quarantine where they're going to kill her and then they're going to study her probably or whatever, you know, or you can give her the cocktail at home that they would give her in quarantine. And I think the doctor says something like, it's extremely, extremely painful. Like, I know that your daughter like doesn't feel anything right now, like as evidenced by the fact that she chops off her finger in like the first like 30 minutes of the movie. That was pretty gross. All the black shit coming out and everything, you know, or the third option is you can make it quick and, you know, just be done with it. And it's kind of like that thing, like that he's preparing this whole time, like his daughter is going to turn into a zombie at one point and he has to decide like what's going to happen and like how it's going to end. And, you know, what the fuck is, you know, how do you deal with that situation? Like it's, you know, it's like, we keep drawing parallels because that's 100% what this movie is about. You know, it's how do you pull the plug on your own kid? Do you let them slowly go? Do you keep them alive on life support for as long as you can? Like, you know, what, you know, how do you make that decision? And in the end, he ultimately doesn't have to make that decision, you know, which, you know, sort of speaks to Maggie's character in the movie and like, I don't know, the way that she has sort of like come to terms with her own illness, and, you know, and her, you know, sort of relationship with her dad.
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite part of this film is that last scene with them together.
Yeah, it's definitely like, because this is this big tense scene and you're like, oh fuck, man, this could go really bad. You know, she could just,
and then it's really downplayed.
yeah, she could just go crazy and start attacking him, or he could just shoot her right then and there, and then sort of nothing happens. And it gives you sort of this weird sense of like, I don't know, it gives you this sort of like unresolved anxiety for like a second, and then as she climbs up on the roof after that, and then, you know, jumps off, you know, sort of face plants, and then that's kind of the end of the movie. And so she's sort of like taking the decision out of her dad's hands. But yeah,
which I think is really works in the context.
It does. It totally does, especially because, you know, of the vehicle of it being a zombie movie. You know, it has its.
How often do we see something like this in a zombie film?
Yeah, I mean that's also like one of the I don't know. It's not like it is like a trope of zombie movies, but not like in a bad way. You have the character who knows that the end is coming and sort of just takes care of it themselves, you know, type of thing. They're like, I don't want to make anybody else have to make this decision, even after I turn to have to, you know, like shoot me in the head or whatever. So like, I'm going to deal with this now. You see it in a lot of that trope is in, I don't know, maybe not every horror movie, but in most of them, in a lot of them. So, but it's interesting to see it from the, you know, perspective of a little girl and the way that the disease sort of like progresses in this movie. It seems a lot slower than in a lot of other movies, you know, where somebody gets bit and then like a few hours or maybe like a day later, you know, they're like a zombie instantly, and then like that's it. This movie is like, it's just like sort of slow process, you know, where shit just like gets worse and worse over the course of like a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, the time span isn't really given because they say that, you know, they say that the disease is different for everyone. So the time span isn't really given, but it's seemingly over a couple
weeks. Yeah, they
weeks.
say everything in the movie from like about 2 weeks to like even as long as 6 to 8 weeks. And they're talking about like, even there are sections in the movie where you see people walking around, you know, including Abigail Breslin, like doing normal shit, like going to the doctor and like hanging out with their friends and shit. And they're totally like infected, you know, like you get the classic pale skin with the black veiny goo underneath that you can see. And they're just like trying to be normal kids. And they're like, you know, we know that it's going to be over soon, but it's not over yet. So I don't know. It's interesting the way that, I don't know, zombie-itis is presented.
It's kind of refreshing because it's not, again, it's just not something we're used to in a zombie film where like things are going on like normal. And I'm assuming that's because in this film, the zombie plague is seemingly like contained to some extent.
Yeah, and they say that a lot. There's like a couple of sections, especially in the beginning of the movie, where like the radio is on in the car or something, and they're talking about the outbreak, and they're saying like, obviously, you know, like cities and everything were hit a lot harder just because of the concentration of people and all of that stuff. But,
right,
you know, they're saying that like, I think they say over the radio that like, you know, most places are contained and like, I don't know. It seems like this is, you know, not days after the zombie outbreak. This is maybe like months or even like a year after the initial like outbreak. So this is like definitely like post outbreak movies, where most movies that we see that are zombies are like outbreak is now, like you're dealing with it, you know, sort of like day one or week one or something like that, where like nobody really knows what's going on. And this movie is sort of past all that, where they still don't really understand the illness, but they definitely know, you know, how to deal with it, you know, at least.
And that they can
quarantine it. And, you know, they know that, you know, once you reach a certain point, you know, that's when your time is up and you need to be quarantined or, you know, sort of disposed of or whatever.
Well, and again, I think that there's a lot of stuff that this film does really well, and presenting a zombie apocalypse and a different side of it. I mean, normally we're seeing, like you said, people like running from the infection or, you know, trying to figure out a way to like survive the early days of the infection. And this is like a quiet film about zombies. Like you don't see this very often.
There's that one sequence where like her friend, like the other kid, it's like a boy that's like her age, who's also infected or whatever, and it's like his time to like go to quarantine quarantine, and she's like over at their house or whatever, and he's like locked himself in the room, and his dad's got like a shotgun and is like ready to like take his own son out or whatever, and the police show up to like take him to quarantine. And you know, that's about as like zombie as this movie really gets in terms of like dealing with the outbreak or whatever. It's almost like, yeah, it's just like, imagine if, you know, there was like a plague going around and you found out that your neighbor had it or whatever, and then you get, you know, the people in the, you know, white hazmat suits coming over to like pick them up or whatever. And I don't know. It's interesting, like the way that everything is sort of like normalized and downplayed, you know?
Yeah. Well, and again, it's because of the time frame that they're telling this story in. And I think it works really well for this style of story. Again, comparing it to other zombie films, there's not a whole lot of other zombie films that do this kind of story, that tell like a dramatic story. You know, you have stuff like The Walking Dead, which may be the closest comparison. But even then, like The Walking Dead, there's a lot of the show that is action, and it's not like a quiet, you know, character study like this is. There's no action in this film.
Yeah, there's, I mean,
none.
Yeah.
Arnold kills some zombies, but it's not an action film.
No, it's like, you know, it's just like a, oh shit, there's a zombie, like I gotta.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show, and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice, and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
Fucking kill this shit because otherwise I'm gonna die. Like, you know, it's not like there's no AKs, there's no, you know, there's no flamethrowers, there's no explosions, you know, there's none of that, you know. It's very, everything is very calm and normalized.
Yeah, and I think for me that's what, you know, that's what makes this film successful, but at the same time I know that that's what turned off a lot of people to this film, is that it's a very quiet, slow, kind of plodding at times film. And I mean, realistically, could they have gotten a better dramatic actor?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, but
they could have gotten someone who's a dramatic actor to their core, but I think for me it's exciting that Arnold Schwarzenegger pulls this off as well.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not like, I'm not watching this movie going like, oh man, if they would have gotten what's his face, this movie would have been better. Like there's none of that. So I'm surprised that this movie didn't get like a better reception than it got. And I think maybe part of that is because Arnold was billed in it as like a top actor, and it's like, you know, sort of dramatic movie, and sort of people are like, oh man, that's gonna suck, or I don't know. I mean, yeah, because to me, this movie's not a bad movie, and you're right. It's like totally on the same. It's on the same level. I feel like as a lot of these, you know, movies that we're seeing come out, you know, recently that are of like the sort of like quieter horror variety, you know, the sort of like more reserved stuff that's not, you know, the big budget, you know, Hollywood slasher monster movies or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Didn't this movie go like direct to video on demand or something like that?
Yeah, it did. It wasn't released in theaters, I don't believe.
Yeah, or like very limitedly it was.
Yeah. And so, you know, I mean, that's something you and I have talked about, us both being, you know, fans of the genre, is horror is kind of it's in a transition period right now where it's becoming more mainstream, but in it becoming more mainstream, it's changing the expectations of horror films a lot. It's changing what mainstream audiences want from horror films, because let's be honest, I don't think most mainstream audiences want to be scared. I think most mainstream audiences want something maybe not as slow as this, but something like this where it's doing something different with the horror genre outside of just jump scares and, you know, people being hacked
where
to
it's
bits.
a more dramatic experience. And it's more about the characters and the arc than it is really about the blood and the guts or whatever. Which I get, and there's a lot of movies that do that really well. I don't know. I mean, I like them all. So give me the blood and guts, and then give me the sad zombie movie with Arnold in it, and I'll watch them all. I like them.
Well, and Arnold, I would love to see Arnold in a zombie film that is more, I don't know, more typical zombie film.
Yeah, if you put Arnold in a movie like Zombieland or something like that, that is the money movie. That's the movie that's going to make a ton of money, where this movie...
Because Arnold is still a draw. Okay. This is a very atypical Schwarzenegger film.
Yeah, exactly. It's... Arnold Schwarzenegger got famous for a very specific type of movie, and then he was pretty much typecast as that for the rest of his career.
It made him a lot of money.
It made him a ton of money, and it made him, one of the biggest actors of all time. But it's really nice to see a movie like this where he's really playing a character that we've never seen him play before. So
yeah, I agree. What would you give this film out of 5?
I would give this movie probably like a 3.5 out of 5. Probably like a 3.5. I really liked it. My only qualms with this movie are that it's a little too slow at points. This movie's not even an hour and a half, like running time, like start to, finish or whatever. Maybe with the end credits, it's a little bit over. But the actual movie chunk of this is, maybe an hour 20, hour 25. And it feels like it's 2 hours. So it's a little slow for my taste. And it gets a little bit repetitive at certain points. But I still love it. I still think it's great. I think the acting is great from both Arnold and Abigail Breslin, who we haven't really talked about because, this month is about Arnold, not about Abigail Breslin. But I'm usually not a big fan of hers, and I liked her in this movie. So kudos to those guys. And what about you?
I'd probably give it like a 3.5. It's a Schwarzenegger film that comes out of nowhere if you're not expecting the style of film that it is. And yeah, like you said, Abigail Breslin is not someone that I think is of like a serious dramatic actress, and she's way better than I think anyone gives her credit for.
She is Academy Award nominated, so I don't know. That's more than either of us got going for us.
So. She's also the brother of Spencer Breslin, and that guy is real bad, real bad, man. So yeah, I think it's a good film. I think it's a perfectly good film. It's not a great film, but it's a good film, and it's a film that is not what if you're expecting Arnold blowing up zombies. Look elsewhere.
It's not that. Yeah, no, it's they created this really interesting, self-contained little universe in this movie that I really like. When I go and see movies, that you have this world that they built that's like sort of this believable place. I really like that. They did a really good job with that in this movie.
What do you think the film has on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh, I don't even know. I'm gonna go with maybe like I don't know. I feel like this movie probably flew under the radar for a lot of people, or a lot of people just didn't like it for one reason or another. I'm going to go like maybe high 60s, so like 67, 68.
58%. Ooh. Maggie lurches a bit clumsily at times, but is partially redeemed by strong performances and an unexpectedly thoughtful tone.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people were watching this movie and went, where's all the explosions? Why isn't Arnold blowing things up? This movie's so boring. So I don't know.
Yeah. That to me is just pretty spot on. It is kind of slow and plodding. So, but outside of that, I think it's a really good film.
Yeah, I definitely think it deserves higher than a 58%, but whatever.
Well, we'll take another break and we'll play a preview for next week's show.
"13 years ago, audiences across America were horrified by the savagery of a faceless killer. In the wake of this bizarre rampage, he vanished. Now, after more than a decade of silence, he has come out of hiding. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, The Buzz is back, directed by Tobe Hooper.
That's right, we'll be back next week with a discussion of our first film for our annual horror movie month, Horrortober 4, Dream Warriors. We're going to be talking about... They're not going to dream no more. we're going to be talking about sequels only this Horror-tober. So get excited for 2, 3, and 4s of films because we're not talking originals. We're talking sequels only. So the first film we're going to be talking about next month is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which stars Dennis Hopper and is a verifiably insane film where Leatherface has sex with a woman with a chainsaw. It's fucking nuts. What has been going on with you, Eric?
I don't know. Bunch of stuff here and there. We're going to have some new, or at least I am going to have some new things coming out soon, like music-wise and things like that. So we'll talk more about that when it gets to be that time. But yeah, man, just, hanging out, getting ready for October and watching movies. Halloween Town, Hocus Pocus, all the Disney fan favorites. Yeah, man, just kicking it, making loud music and drinking beer and watching horror movies when I can. I don't know. I still have yet to finish Twin Peaks, so I got to do that. But I don't know. I haven't heard very good things, so I'm kind of like waiting to watch it. Yeah, man, what have you been up to?
Not a whole lot. Just watching movies and getting ready to go to the great Pacific Northwest for a little bit here in a couple days. So going to Seattle for a little bit. Yeah. So other than that, not a whole lot. You can follow the show, though, over at the newly redesigned cultureshock.com. It's all new coat of paint. It's an all new website, folks. Go check it out.
Fancy.
It looks... Yeah, it's pretty fancy. You'll find links to iTunes where you can rate and review the show and to Patreon where you can kick a couple dollars our way. Donors get access to unreleased episodes, DVDs, and a chance to guest co-host a Culture Cast. You can follow me on Twitter at Culture Stash. You can follow Eric on Twitter at Tycho Magnetics. And you can follow the website at Culture Shocked, all on Twitter. Big thanks, as always, to Eric and Wovoka for our intro song, Lament, and to Da Decipher for our outro song, Two Step.
You know how we do, I'm just two-step, drink in my right hand, phone in my other hand, getting to the money, oh man, two-step, posted with the crew, yeah, you know how we do.
Hey, two-stepping, know what I'm saying? 1, 2, 1, 2, Benjamin, aka the Black T, you know what I'm saying? Catch me with my crew every day, two-step. Phone in my other hand, like, hello? Oh, get into the money, man. Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.